Because, boy, for the last 4 days, all I have been hearing from my sources in and around the vice president's orbit has been how upset he was about, frankly, the lack of contact from President Trump, not just on Wednesday night as the vice president and his family, huddled in a secure room in the Capitol, but since then, up until, frankly, tonight. So, listen, I can't characterize the conversation beyond what I'm hearing from a senior administration official saying it was a good conversation, but you have to imagine the undertones of awkwardness were there, right? Now, formally, we're told by that official that the two of them talked about the week ahead, reflected on the last 4 years, we're told, of the administration's work and accomplishments. They did talk about what happened at the Capitol, reiterating that the people who broke the law do not represent the America First movement that the president represents, pledging to continue their work on behalf of the country. But I will tell you that there is real anger on the part of allies of the vice president at the way that he's been treated by President Trump in their view. And even the vice president himself said to a Republican senator who then talked about it publicly that he was furious after all he's done was sort of the idea from Pence. Remember, this is somebody who's been the president's most loyal soldier, right? Through it all, through thick and thin, the vice president has been there. And when those chants of hang Mike Pence came up from the rioters who stormed the Capitol last week, the president did not personally condemn those chants, did not personally condemn the threats, you hear him here, against Mike Pence. And instead, the administration, via a spokesperson, put out a statement that simply said, we condemn violent threats against anybody, including members of the administration, Shep. So very notable that the two finally did talk today. You had to think it was coming, Shep. I don't know about you, but if you work with somebody, you're their number two, right? Like, eventually you're going to have to talk. But there was a chance it might have gone 10 more days without that happening.
Ooh, Hallie, on another subject, the acting Homeland Security Secretary Chad Wolf resigned late today. What can you tell us about that?
So this was interesting, and notably in his resignation letter, acting Secretary Wolf did not cite the riots at the Capitol, as we have seen happen in other resignations over the past week, like, for example, the Education Secretary Betsy DeVos. Instead, what Wolf said was that he felt like he could no longer serve because of his, for lack of a better word, temporary title. He is the acting secretary. There has been a lot of questions about him being acting and not formally in that role. And there's been litigation surrounding that. So Wolf stepped away. It came just a few days, of course, after Wolf said in a letter that he would stay on until the end of the administration's term. Shep.
Hallie, one more thing. What are your sources saying about the tension or what it's like inside the White House now in these waning days?
Uncomfortable, I think, is a word that could sum it up. The president is, by all accounts, feeling very defiant. There's this talk, Shep, that perhaps he will resign or step down rather than face what you and Kayla were just talking about, the prospect of a second impeachment. Based on the reporting that I've done and the sources that I've talked to, it is very difficult, if not almost impossible, to see how that would happen. The president truly feels aggrieved. By many accounts, he is rather isolated in the West Wing. He has that very small inner circle of advisors around him, but not the extended group. You've got staffers who are feeling concerned, who are still really upset about what went down on Wednesday and the response to it and the way that that has been handled. So it is a very sort of tense and awkward ending to an administration that has had its share, I think is fair to say, of some tense and awkward moments, but nothing like this before. Now the president is leaving office with the shadow of a second impeachment hanging over his head, multiple top officials resigning in protest, Shep. It is certainly one for the history books.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.